I'm sorry. I just looked at the title. Can I?
And we are here with a really beautiful friend of mine. And I'm saying really beautiful on a lot of levels. And I
Hmm.
don't know if I get to talk to her. I'm saying her right now. I'm going to talk to her in a minute, but talk to her about how much I've always admired her beauty. Obviously the outside, the obvious, but just a really, you have a very beautiful energy inside. And I'm talking here with Depelsha McGruder. For those just listening, hi Depelsha, how are
Hi,
you?
Kenya. That's so sweet. I feel the same way.
I've always, I mean, so here we go. I'm
Yes.
back again with the HU. Here we go. I got a lot of Howard family, and from
As
the
you should. As you should.
and from the first day, I think I must have met you in gospel choir. I think that's when we
Yeah.
first.
The second soprano section.
Yep, we were both second sopranos. And see, I don't know if your people know. Yeah, y'all that know Depelsha, did y'all know she can sing? I don't know how much you talk about that
Only
in the.
people who go do karaoke with me. That's my extent of singing now.
Well, y'all, she can actually sing beyond karaoke, so I'm not sure what she demonstrates. But I'm just so happy that you agreed to come in this space because you guys are going to see that, Depelsha is a very dynamic soul, is doing some really amazing things professionally, but also personally. And I don't know how you manage all of it. I really don't. And I hope you give
We're
us
going
the
to talk about
secrets.
it.
I was about to say,
Yeah,
I
we're going to
hope
talk
you
about
give
it.
us the secrets. So before I ask my myriad of questions, I'm going to read something to you. And so I want you just to kind of relax for a minute, take it in, and
Okay.
then we'll kind of go from there. So here we go. A graduate of Howard University and Harvard Business School, Depelsha McGruder is COO and treasurer of the Ford Foundation, overseeing global operations and finance for 11 offices in the US, Africa, Asia, and Latin America. Prior to joining the foundation in 2020, she served in leadership roles at New York Public Radio, Viacom, MTV, and BET networks. In all of these roles, Depelsha has demonstrated a commitment to serve underrepresented Latino, African American, and youth audiences, resulting in triple digit growth in both audience and revenue. More personally, as a mother of two boys, she is the founder of Moms of Black Boys United and M.O.B.B. United for Social Change, sister organizations dedicated to positively influencing how Black boys and men are perceived and treated by law enforcement and in society. Finally, as a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority, the Links Incorporated, and Jack and Jill of America, it is clear that Depelsha is dedicated to service, growth, development, and relationship building within various communities. So, Depelsha, how did it feel hearing me read that to you?
Well, it's my life, you know? So it felt real. And, I just go back through time and all the experiences I've had. And um, I would say I live a very curated life. So
Mm,
everything I do is intentional, nothing is random. So,
mm.
yeah, each of those things you read have meaning to me.
I love it. Okay, so you already said a pretty powerful statement because I don't think many people can say this. I don't think many people can say that they lead a very curated. It's one thing to live with intention. I think it's another
Yeah.
thing when you use the language curated. What do you mean by that? In case people are like, what does she mean by a
That is a
curated?
good question because I just said that for the first time just now. What did I mean? I
It
don't know
came
why I
out.
said that. I
It
know,
came
right?
out.
Well, I think what I meant is that I make choices about what I will do, and when I'm choosing, I think about what is already in my life and what is missing from my life.
Mm,
So I'm
mm,
piecing together things that have meaning to me. So my career serves one function.
mhm.
Organizations you mentioned each serve their own function. Relationships serve another function. So I'm curating the life I want by putting together the pieces that help me to live a fulfilled and aligned life.
Love that. And so, and that needs to be a nugget for everybody to be thinking about that because I think as you age and why I do this podcast is to show people that we don't get over 40 or over 50 and then just go sit down somewhere in a corner. Like this is,
I hope not.
we've right.
That would be
but
sad.
but a lot of people I think
Like, who thinks
especially
that?
when come be in my world of healing work
Okay.
of working
Wow.
with Yeah. No, I this is why I did the podcast, because I think those of us who are living kind of these dynamic lives, sometimes we're a little bit in a bubble, and it
Yeah.
can feel as though, yeah, that's what we do. But because I'm doing healing work with people and I see, that's not the case, or maybe it's kind of the case in some parts of our lives, but other parts
Mhm.
not. So I'm curious to know, has this always been your energy? Have you always felt like you've curated your life, or is this a more recent thing for you?
I would say I've always lived this way. Probably less so now than before, or it has a different spin now.
Mm,
Like I would say, I've always been very planful. Like I was always the person looking out what I want to do. I think as you get older, the time frames get shorter. But I was always the person what I want to do in 10 years, 5 years, 1 year. Like that's just my orientation, right? So
mm, mhm.
like I was always thinking about like I'm going to do this so I can get to this, and then that will teach me this so I can get to that. So that's probably the unique thing about me. I don't think everyone thinks that way, but that's just my natural orientation. I think all the way back to like elementary school. Like I'm talking to my youngest
Mm,
son now because I gave him this planner at school. Like his school actually teaches how to manage your time and how to plan out your schedule and all
awesome.
this. And I'm trying to explain to him
Awesome.
what a gift that is, like
Yes,
them
I was
to
about to say
intentionally teach
awesome.
students how to manage their time and to give them this planner and the Google calendar and all these things that we didn't have. So that was like a natural thing for me, but it's not natural to everyone. So
Right,
I think
right.
like the more you can think about like how you want to spend your time and why you're doing what you're doing, you'll be more likely to end up with the life you want.
Yeah, yeah. No, that is a huge gift that they're teaching that, because
Right?
that's, to me, is the biggest missing thing, is teaching our kids executive skills,
Exactly,
executive
executive function.
qualities.
He thinks it's a
Yes.
total waste of time. Like, why do I have to do it on the Google Calendar and in the planner? Why do I have to write it down and highlight it? I'm like, just trust me. Just do it. Like, just do it.
And even if he decides that's not the thing for him,
Right.
he's at
Over
least
time. Yeah.
exposed. Right.
Hmm.
Exactly. 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 It'll pay off, girl. Because my 20-year-old. It's funny. Right before we pushed record, I told my 20-year-old had a little situation going on, but he
Yeah.
he knew. Let me call mom. Can I do this? Da, 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 da. And it's like it
Right.
comes. It
Yeah. He's
starts.
thinking through the steps.
So you kind of said, you quickly kind of said, maybe you've always been this way, but maybe less now. What did you mean by that? What?
Well, what I mean, one of the things I say to young people when I speak, I don't always get a chance to say it, but if the conversation naturally goes there, one of the things I say is that I worked really hard until age 25 so that I wouldn't
Mm,
have to work hard for the rest of my life. So I was very
mm,
focused, I was very intentional, like I was going to school, I'm doing well, I'm hitting these marks, right? Because if you do
right.
certain things by that age, you're going to have less pressure on the rest of your years. So now I can be like, well, let's just see what happens. But that's on a foundation of like a lot of hard work
Yeah.
to get to a certain place. Now I can say, let's just see what happens. But if I didn't have that foundation of like education and career training and, you know, in some areas
Yeah.
responsible decision making, then I couldn't just wing it. But now I'm kind of winging it, but I'm winging it within a margin of safety, right?
Okay.
That was,
Okay.
that is solidified by the foundation I built the first 25 years of life.
Yes, because now I don't make anybody say their age, so you do not have to say your
Listen,
exact age.
it's
Are
on
you
the
happy?
internet. I'm on
Okay.
the Let me tell you, we're talking about 40. I'm perfectly comfortable with 40. I'm on the Forbes 50 over 50 year list this year, and I'm not
Yes.
happy about it. I just turned 51. 50, that's another show. We can talk about the 40s. Like this, when I
Oh
was
no,
looking at
we're
your
talking
title,
about the 50s. No, it's over. It's
I know,
after
but I'm saying over
40.
50 is different than over 40, Kenya. That's a different show. I'm telling you. That's
Well,
not the
this
same
is what
show.
well, this is the this no, because we've had guests in their 60s, and they
Yeah.
have told us what, obviously, I would say, the majority of guests have been between 45, 55. I would say that's the majority.
Okay. Yeah.
And so people, because I think to your point, every decade there's a different element that starts coming out. So,
Exactly.
and I was going to ask you about, you've already kind of talked about building your foundation, early in that first kind of 25 years, so that you can have a bit more, freedom, and, freedom of life and living at this point. But what would you say has been the biggest difference now that, yes, you've slightly come over to the 50 side,
Hmm.
slightly over here. What has been the biggest difference, or what are some highlights that you're noticing of, like, this is going to be different
50 or 40?
from 50, like going from the 40s
Mm.
now to 50? I know
You
you
know,
just started, so
I just started and I don't like 50 as much as I like 40. So I don't want to bring the audience down.
you
So maybe first we should talk about how glorious the 40s were to give people hope and
ah!
inspiration.
Oh, see, it's so funny. Okay. All right, media
You
manager.
know?
Because I'm like, well, but this is why I also do the podcast. It's important for us to hear the truth of it all, because it's, to me, in the messy, in the not so clean and brilliant, and in the harder, in the tough, obviously those contrasts are teaching us, as well as, the ease may be teaching us.
Yeah.
But to your point, actually, I wanted to talk a little bit about your 30s, because
Okay.
coming up into, yeah, before we even get in the 40s, 20s, it sounds like hard work, hard work. Let me get things
Yeah,
foundation
hard work,
started.
school, graduate, get a job,
Right,
figure out
right.
where you're gonna live.
And then 30s came. What
Yeah.
was that about for you?
So 30s were great, I would say. By then I met my husband at 27. I got married at
Mm,
31. I
nice.
was building my career in the big city, New York
Mhm,
City, where I still
mhm.
am, entertainment. It's all very exciting. Then had children, had infertility issues, so that wasn't the easiest
Mm,
road, but eventually we
mhm,
got there and had two sons. So I had my children at 35 and 39. So
mm.
much of the 30s were just like what I called the building blocks of family life, right? Like
Yeah,
marriage, buy a
mm,
house, have
yeah,
kids, and all
yeah,
that happened like by 39. And building my career, getting promoted at work. That was when I was at Viacom at MTV and BT. And
yeah.
it was great. Like it was all like going along swimmingly, other than, as I mentioned, the issues on infertility, which now it's hard to remember that because I have my kids and they're in front
Mm.
of me. But at the time, that was a very trying thing to go through. Um,
Yeah,
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 but it
yeah.
all worked out. So I get to 39, I have my kids, career, husband, all of that. We're good,
Right.
you
We're
know?
good. Everything is, and see, it's funny because, see, my 30s were just the opposite for me. I was
Yeah,
having my kids, but I did not enjoy my 30s at
you
all.
didn't.
I did
Oh,
not.
can we talk about you too?
Yes, we
After
absolutely
the show?
can. Yeah.
Okay. Or maybe we can do
Yeah.
that after the show.
And yeah, I mean, and feel free. I mean, I
Yeah.
this is going to be really about you today, but I
Okay,
will
okay.
say, I didn't talk about it. I wasn't really public about it because, yes, to your point, I felt like many other people were experiencing their 30s and building their families with more positive energy. And
Mhm.
I was not. I mean, I enjoyed obviously having my children, but I wasn't feeling like Kenya. And I was
Mhm,
feeling
mm.
really disconnected and not knowing, how do I bring Kenya in this life that I've built, because I've built a really
Right.
beautiful life, yeah, for these boys.
Wow.
And even in this marriage, I had built, I think, I had really sacrificed a lot of me, but because I did it. It wasn't, nobody made me do it. This
Yeah,
was
yeah.
Kenya's, thing. So I don't fault anybody. But yeah, so for me, 30s, I was miserable. And it was 40s that then kind of woke me up to Kenya and to the joy. So see,
Okay.
there's different
Of
lenses. But
course.
I yeah, and I think that, but to your point with the infertility piece, and you just see how, like you said, now that's so shifted because your boys are here. And we work through these things. And those who are listening to the podcast who are less than 40, who are in their 30s, who we do have listenership in their 30s,
Yeah.
understand that these all of these things that are happening are building upon each other. So I love that you
Yeah.
started off talking about building. So okay, so 40s. Tell me about
So
the
40s, I would
40s.
say, the 40s, I was gonna have been. I see in my mind, I'm still I don't wanna let the 40s go. In my mind, I'm still in my 40s. I haven't accepted 50 yet. We'll get to that. But 40s were a very interesting decade. Very, very interesting decade. So I start
Mm,
the 40s, as I mentioned, like I've built this life that I dreamed of, right? I wanted to be an entertainment executive, I wanted to be married with kids and living in New York. It's all great. So I start the 40s. I would say 40, that year was like the peak of everything. I remember 40 as
mm,
like the best year ever,
mm,
literally, because like all of
mm,
my dreams and my plan had more or less come true. And I remember I lost all the baby weight. You might have remember my Facebook campaign, like 40 pounds by
Yes.
40. 40
Yeah.
pounds by 40. I lost all the baby weight and then some. Like I was on fire that year, you know?
Ah, I love
Um,
it. I love it.
so the 40s started off very well. And then a few things happened throughout that decade that has shifted my life and led to, I guess, where I am now. So
Mhm.
at 43, I started M.O.B.B. United, which
Yes.
you mentioned is a nationwide coalition of moms with Black sons. And I always tell people I wasn't trying to start anything. Like I
No,
wasn't
she
trying to
wasn't.
start anything. I was
I
just like, yeah,
I was just gonna say, I remember you sending that Facebook message, like, "I'm just, like, worn out about this, like, does I just wanna talk about, like, what can we
yeah,
do
with
watching
moms who can understand. And
these
this was
Black women."
related to, police
Yes.
killings of unarmed Black
Yes.
boys and men in particular who, they just shoot at an instant at that time and they could just say, oh, I thought he had a gun. It was a cell phone. I thought he was going to hit me. And that was enough. Like there was no trial.
Right.
There was no indictment, anything back then. So all the advocacy that so many organizations, including ours, have done since then have led to now we see arrests and police officers going
Yes.
to jail for killing Black people. But at the time, that was not the
No.
case. So I was just expressing my frustration and anger and sadness about that and started this nationwide organization. So that happened at 43. And I think that was a huge shift for me
Yeah.
because I mean, one, I've talked about this. I'm an introvert. I don't talk to strangers in general. And I certainly don't
Yeah.
talk to strangers on the internet. And I literally started this organization with people I met on Facebook. I didn't know
Yeah.
really almost any of the people personally. And we're still together
Wow.
today, like women all over the country who heard the call, wanted to join in building this. And so that just expanded me personally in a way that I
Mm.
didn't expect, right? So
Yeah.
that's 43. Then 44, so that was unexpectedly starting, a nonprofit. 44, I leave Viacom, also somewhat unexpectedly, right?
Mm,
So
mhm.
it was a part of restructuring. And in my time there, like I've been there 16, 17 years. There have been like,
Mm.
I stopped counting, 10 to 15 rounds of layoffs, right? And I
Mhm.
felt like I should leave maybe probably 3 to 4 years before I left. Like I felt like I
Mm.
wasn't really growing as much there, but
Mhm.
it was such a fun thing. Like like people from the outside looking at me like, why would you give up this job? Like you're at the award shows,
Yes.
on the red carpet, you're
Yes.
hanging out with celebrities, and it was fun. So it was very hard, like to let that
Yeah.
go because I didn't know what was on the other side. I didn't know like if there was anything better. I didn't know if I would miss it. I didn't know if I would be able to replicate my salary, like so many things. So I didn't want to
Mm.
really take the chance.
Mhm.
So I would say like they gave me the gift of restructuring. And at the time I had a year left on my contract. So I had a year to just build M.O.B. United in that time
Wow.
and still like
Wow.
not sacrifice any income. Right. So it
Right.
was like perfect
Right.
timing and literally a gift
Yeah.
in that I remember being at, Deborah Lee used to have, she still has these leading women define conferences.
Mhm.
And I would go at that time as an employee of BET. And I remember being in one of these sister circles when someone who was facilitating said, you're a fish swimming in a pond, but you should be in an ocean or something like that.
Mm.
And I
Uh-huh.
was like,
Uh-huh.
that's me, but I can't say that because I'm at work, right? I'm at work right now, feeling like a fish in the pond when I should be in the ocean,
Yeah.
right? And that's where some of it was
Right.
confined. And so
Mm.
that kind
Mm.
of freed me from that.
Mhm.
And then I went on, to build M.O.B. United, gave me time to really focus on building it. And then I ended up moving on to New York Public Radio as COO. So it was my first C job, right? Like, so I'd been
Yeah.
operating in a C capacity, but I didn't have the C in front of my title.
Title.
So
Yeah.
all these things started to open up, I would say in my 40s,
Mm.
in a major way. And it really allowed me to, I would say, utilize like
Mhm.
my talents and skills that I had built over time
Yes.
in a
Yes.
different way. So
Yeah.
that's up to like 40. What am I now? Like 45, 6.
Yeah, probably. Yes.
But then this light keeps going in and out. I don't know what's going on. But then at 48, my husband passed away
Mm.
unexpectedly. So
Mm.
another completely unexpected thing. It was the year of the pandemic, 2020.
Yeah.
He didn't die from COVID. He had a stroke, because Kenya,
Yeah.
you all should know, sang a beautiful song for his
Mm.
service, which had to be
Yeah.
mostly virtual, and it was 2020, right? So
Right.
all these things happened in my 40s. It really shifted like my whole life in major ways that I didn't expect.
Yeah.
Some positive
Wow.
and one obviously very negative.
Exactly. I was gonna say there's like these extreme highs and extreme lows. And,
Yes.
like I said, Depelsha and I went to school together, so we've known each other for, through the decades. But, and have been able to maintain some type of kind of contact. I remember yes, you would text me when you were with Boris Kojo, and I'm like, oh my God.
Right, who wants to give up that job? Nobody. I'm not giving up this job, you know?
I'm like, do you need an assistant tonight?
Right,
Like,
yeah,
so I, kind of watched on the outside,
yeah,
you like bloom like that. But to your point, having kind of these extreme highs to these extreme losses, and now here we are, at 50, right? And it's like,
yeah.
to your point, like, okay, so now what does that mean? And I before we kind of go into that, what do you think life is teaching you? I mean, because you just gave some
Ooh,
really beautiful, yeah, some kind of beautiful ups and highs and downs. What is and when I say what is life,
yeah.
whatever resonates for you, if you feel like what is God teaching you, what is, source, your soul, whatever, or just life.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, what's it trying to teach
Wow, that is so deep.
you?
I think I'm still figuring that out. I think that
Mm,
the first thing that comes to mind when you ask that is life is teaching me that I'm not in control, right? So I
mm,
mentioned how I developed a very planned life, like up to a certain point.
mhm,
And then things started to happen. And I would say since then, more things started happening. I would describe my life exactly as you said. Like my life is literally the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. Like there's no in between.
yeah,
I'm never
yeah,
bored. Like it's always the highest of highs or the lowest of lows, often at the
yeah.
same time. Um,
Mm,
so I
mm,
think life or God is teaching me I'm not in control, and I have to just yield to what may come.
mm. Yes. Well, I love the yield because, and it's interesting because I sometimes I ask that question of guests, and sometimes I don't. And because I know it's a hard, like that's a, because if
Yeah,
somebody asked me that, I'm like, well, but I do think this idea of yielding to life while still dreaming and being intentional, I
yeah.
think that can be hard. And I do think I'm seeing that in my 50, I turn 51 actually tomorrow, the day when we're
Okay.
recording this, at the
Happy,
time this
happy.
airs.
Welcome to 50 plus one. It just keeps
Yes.
going, apparently.
Fif- By the time this airs, it's funny. This is going to be airing in January, but we're
Okay.
recording it in November. But yeah, my birthday is November 11th. And so, to your point, I just feel myself in a yield. And like
Mhm.
I have these ideas and I have these new goals, but life has taught me that, many things will probably still happen in this year that you're completely, many beautiful things and many not beautiful things at all. And
Yeah.
so, learning how to yield in it all. So I love that you said that. I
Well,
love
one
that
thing I
you
would say, I think it's easier now to yield. And I would also say I'd now go with, I guess, what we describe as your gut more.
said. Mhm.
But it's a well developed gut, right? So now I can go with my gut because my gut has data and wisdom and experiences that
Yes.
inform it. It's not just random. So I'm much more comfortable with the yielding because I'm very clear on who I am. I'm very clear on
Yes.
my values, my boundaries, what I care about, what I don't care about. So it's not as random as it seems if you have a clear
Yeah,
sense of who you are. And I think there's
exactly.
no way to get there. So even the title of your podcast, Finding Your Voice After 40, like my initial reaction to the title is how can you find your voice before 40? Like you don't have enough information, you don't have enough experience, you don't have enough
Yes.
wisdom about life to really find your voice. It just life takes time. Like it takes time
Yeah.
to bake. It's like a soup,
Mm.
but you don't bake a
Yes.
soup. You know what I'm saying? Like you put,
But you boil and you
you
let
put
it
all the ingredients
simmer.
and it takes time to like
Yeah.
put the ingredients and then let it simmer and see what develops. And you just can't do that unless you have so many years in the
Exactly.
game.
Exactly. Hence why I'm doing the podcast, because
Yeah.
I do think our culture, our mainstream culture, with the emphasis on youth or on young adulthood, I do think those of us in our 50s, 40s, 60s, a lot of our voices and our truths don't really
Mhm.
get to reach kind of the mainland and the main
Right, right.
conversation. But what you just said, I co-sign 3,000,000% in that you haven't even started until you get in your 40s. Like
Yeah.
you've started, you've built, like you said, the base of the soup or what have you, but there's so many other vegetables and other seasonings and other things that are going to make that soup so much more rich and
Hmm.
savory. So I love that example. So my next question for you, you're a mom and you have two teens, correct? Teenagers?
Almost 12 and 15.
Okay, 12-year-old, he's
Yes.
on his way. He just turned 12, right? Did he
Just
just have
turned
a
12.
birthday?
Yes.
Yes, I
Hmm.
saw that on social media. He and I are both Scorpios. I remember
Yes.
it made sense. I was like, he's a Scorpio. That's why he's deep like that. That's why he sees like that. But how have you, because you're clearly your career, I mean, you're in the C-suite. It's not, I think you've worked really hard. And to your point, you've done what you needed to do and been very clear with who you are. In that clarity, how have you been able to balance motherhood? Because,
Hmm.
especially at this point now, being more of a single mom,
Yeah.
um,
I solo mom. I make the distinction
solo
between
mom.
single and solo because
Yeah.
these single moms, these divorced moms have it easy, I think, because you can send these kids to somebody else. Like I have a colleague who like sends her son away for a whole week, then he comes back. I'm like, that's like a vacation. Like I never am off. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
always have to
Yeah.
figure this out.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So how are you doing that? Like how like is there are you do you I mean, what support do you have or
Yeah.
not
Yeah,
to
no,
do
I'll share. So, well, before I had a supportive husband, so I should say that.
Yeah.
When because I had to travel a lot for work and entertainment, and he was very supportive and helpful.
Mm,
In that regard, my mom is here most of the time, so I'm from Georgia. She's been here back and forth since Garrett, my first son, was born, and
mhm.
now just this for the past year, I have an au pair for
Oh,
the
nice.
first time. So
Okay.
because I found I just couldn't get it done with just me and my mom, and like we needed like more like consistent support. So for people who are not familiar with the au pair program, is sponsored by the State Department, and young people come from other countries to live with you for a year and help
Mm,
out with your children and household, and it's supposed to be a cultural exchange. And then they
mhm.
go back or move on with life. So I've had someone here from Brazil for the past
Mm,
year, and she's going to
nice.
be ending her term, and I'm have someone new coming from South Africa in
Wow.
January.
Wow. Ooh, I don't think
Like
I
that
knew
is
that.
hard.
Yeah, I was
You
gonna
know?
say, I don't think I knew that, and thanks
Yeah,
for
no, it's
breaking
very
down.
new.
Yeah, I was gonna say thanks for breaking down kind of what au pair means, because I don't know if everybody really
Yeah, well, let me explain what it doesn't mean. So, but there are rules, right? So they can only work so many hours per week, 45 hours. So by the time like we use the morning and the afternoon after school, like the hours are pretty much done by now. Like she's going to be
Mm,
off any minute
mhm.
now. So I'm still on my own on the weekends. Like, I'm pretty
Yeah.
much like on my own having to figure it out on the weekends.
Mm,
Yeah. And I
yeah.
also have a unique situation in that my oldest son has autism, which is a different level of care, not physically, but just
Mhm,
he doesn't have the level of communication skills, socialization, processing, judgment that I
right,
can leave them home alone. Because otherwise,
right,
if he's 15 and Grant is 12, they could just stay home alone and
right,
not think, right? But because of
right,
that, I need someone here if I'm not
right,
here.
right, 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 right. So this we're getting I don't understand how the time moves so fast because I'm looking at the
Mm,
clock. I'm like, we're
I'm
almost at
sorry.
30 minutes.
I'm
That's crazy.
rambling on. Okay.
No, you've been perfect. This has been awesome. I think I want to like to your point where you said, I'm a solo mom and differentiating that. And it's funny because I am the divorced mom whose kids do go, but I'm in a whole completely different lane at this point because my oldest is
Yeah, they're
20. So
older,
yeah,
right? Like,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah,
So that's
it's
a whole
it's
different
different.
phase too.
It's a whole different phase.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to know what are the things that you're doing just for yourself to keep yourself I mean, self-care is a word I could use, but just what are you
Yeah,
doing to take
kind of
care of
overused, but
yourself?
I know what you
Yeah,
mean.
yeah.
I think, the things I do are bubble baths. I'm big on bubble baths
Mhm.
as a way to relax and unwind. Also just rest in general. So if you see like my Facebook feed, like people are always like, I don't know how you do all of this. You're here, you're in Kenya, then you're in LA, then you're doing this, right? There are all these things, right? But you know what I'm doing when you don't see me doing? all of that,
Leave it.
nothing at all. I'm on my couch. So if you don't see a Facebook post, just assume I'm on my couch or in the bed. Like I'm not doing everything. So that's so I have very
Yeah.
clear boundaries. Like there are things I've committed to, there are organizations, there are boards, my children, of course, that I've committed to, my job. But
Right.
outside of that, I don't do very much. If it's not something that I've personally committed to, that I've chosen in this curated life, I say no. And I don't
Yeah.
have a problem saying no. So I'm not at every event. You know, you mentioned I'm the AKA Links. I'm only at the Links event that I have to go to. I'm not at the other chapters in Queens and Long Island and all over the country. I go to the one I have to go to, and then I wait 2 years later and I go again, right? So
Yeah.
I'm not doing everything that everyone else wants me to do because they want me to do it. I've chosen what my life priorities are. That's what I've committed to. And very rarely do I say yes to anything else. And I don't feel the need to explain why. And I don't feel bad about it. Like, I'm not doing
Mm.
it. And I'm not like, I'm just on my couch, but I'm not going
Yes.
because I am busy with all these things and have to spend time with my children too. So anytime that I'm not doing one of these many things I've committed to, I need to be at home with my children most of the
Yes.
time.
Yes. Okay, so you get the golden star because I get this all the time. People are constantly, and I know on social media it looks like I'm
Yeah.
doing 3,000,006 things. And that's probably the biggest thing I'm told all the time. Oh my God, how do you do this? This is, but to your point, I promise y'all, me and my couch, my home is like my sanctuary, my bath. I
Yes.
do a deep soak pretty much, if not every night. It's like 5 or 6 nights a week. I am
Yes.
deeply
Nice. I
in the
love it.
tub.
I love it.
And I do think people need to hear that side of those of us who have
Yeah.
these multiple things going on. You think that inside our houses, this is what, no, I'm not. No.
Mm-mm. I'm after this, I'm done for the day. Like I'm gonna go
Yes,
take this off, put on my pajamas. Like we're gonna figure out what we're having for dinner, and that's it. That's a
yes.
wrap.
Right,
You
and
know.
it's a wrap. Right, right.
Hmm.
And so I it's funny you said it like that because same here. If I didn't have to do this thing I have to do for my son now, it's same. My birthday's tomorrow, so everyone is like, "Oh, what you do?" I'm like,
Right.
I do have a pedicure that I'm getting, but I'm gonna sit and I may go to dinner. Like I'm trying to
Right.
keep it really low key because of these things that
Yeah.
I am
Yeah.
passionate
So
about.
rest. I mean, the answer is rest. I don't need much more than that. You know, they're like people like, what are your hobbies? And all. I don't have time for hobbies. Like my hobbies are all these things I'm doing, I guess, but rest. I saw like a meme that said that like I'm an adult. I don't have hobbies. If I have any free time at all, I'm gonna lie down. That's
Right.
what I'm doing.
Right, but that just means you have a very full life,
Yeah,
you have a full
absolutely.
life that you can take moments of rest,
Yeah.
from. Well, I just have like 2 more questions and then we're gonna go in our bonus. And in our
Okay.
bonus, those of you who are not part of Patreon, you wanna join Patreon because in our bonus, I'm gonna have, Depelsha provide a little bit more specific advice, because I think the way the way you've just described things, is to me very clear. And I think that a lot of people intellectually get that, but still have
Mm,
a hard time, implementing the boundaries, like
mhm,
doing that actual thing. But we'll get to that later. But two
mm.
last questions. What do you feel like you're most looking forward to? Is there something that you're still looking forward to in the future and you just know, right now it's not quite the time?
Yeah, I think a few things come to mind. One, I will say, like as I mentioned, I'm struggling with the 50s because I do feel like I've gone over to some other side, and I haven't even been contacted by AARP, so that's not it. But I do feel like I have more years behind me than ahead of me. Like I feel
Yeah.
the shift and I feel
Yeah.
like I'm thinking about retirement and how like what am I going to do?
Yeah.
I'm thinking much more about those kind of things.
Yeah.
Also because I lost my husband young and my father also died this year, so I think
Mm,
mortality is much more
right,
pronounced and real for me than it would have otherwise been. I didn't really think about age in those terms before.
right.
But what I'm looking forward to is seeing like what happens next because now I'm
Mhm.
completely open, right? Like I don't have a plan. The blessing is that, and I tell my son this, like the blessing is all of my dreams have come true, which a lot of people get, like my
Mm.
plan is done. I went as far as I could go with my own
Wow.
plan. So now I'm like, well, what's God's plan for the rest of my life? Because I'm still not
Yeah.
that old, right?
Yeah.
So I'm completely open to what may happen next. Um, I don't plan to stay at the Ford Foundation forever. I don't think it's my final destination. So career wise, we'll see. I don't know. I don't even, if
Yeah.
you ask me what I want to do, we'll see. I know what I'm interested in. I know who I am. And if something comes along that aligns with that, I would
Yeah.
consider it at the right time, you know? So
Yeah.
that's one thing career wise. And then will I find love again? I don't know. Like
Mhm.
So everyone doesn't get, some people don't even get one love. So I don't think it's a guarantee that I will, you know.
Okay,
Um
so you know I gotta chime in, right? Okay, so
okay,
here I'm
go
gonna chime in, the love doctor. No, I'm just kidding.
ahead.
I will say this. So my partner who I'm with now, and I've been with
Uh-huh.
for
I've
3
been
years now.
following on online.
Yes. Who I love immensely, who
Oh, that's beautiful.
um he's a widower. He was married
Okay.
20 years and his wife passed.
Okay.
And
How did you find him?
well, this is so crazy. I found him like on Bumble, which was really
Really?
random. I know.
Okay, I'm gonna try the apps next year. I haven't worked up the courage yet, but I had to like get up
I was
my.
gonna say, well, this is what's interesting, Depelsha. Barry is his name, and guess what university Barry went to and graduated in 1994? And I didn't
Howard.
know. He went to Howard.
I thought I saw that. And you didn't know him?
I did not know him.
Wow.
Our paths never crossed that whole time,
Yeah.
and
Well, I
we
didn't know. My husband went to Howard. We didn't meet at Howard. We
see
didn't meet until years later in New York.
exactly. And
Hmm.
so it's funny how Bumble is what connected, but I bring him up because one of the questions I ask him a lot is how have you been able to love again after loving so
Yeah.
hard before? And he's like, you just do. You have more capacity than
Yeah.
you could ever
Absolutely.
imagine, and
Hmm.
so and he's very present, and I don't feel like I'm competing with a past thing.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think he continues to do deep healing work and continues to take care of his mental health and his identity. He's very intentional about
Hmm.
all of
That's
that. so
beautiful.
so I think you
Okay.
absolutely, if
That's
that's something
hopeful.
you yes, if you desire. If you desire. If you don't desire, then,
No,
no,
of
but if
course.
you
I'm not a statue sitting on a shelf for the rest of my life. Why would I not desire? I'm 51. Yeah.
Right, but some people feel like, I think that people will limit themselves based
Yeah.
on, a variety of things,
I'm
but
not one of those people. No
yeah.
Limit Productions.
Yeah. No, you have a lot to give, and your energy is very, well protected, open. So I think yes.
Mhm.
So we'll see what
Okay.
love comes in
Well,
the
that's
future.
encouraging. But yeah, those are the things I'm looking forward to. And of course, also looking forward to getting my children where they need to be. I'm kind of in what I'm describing as a 7-year stretch. 'Cause they're 12 and 15, like to get them to adulthood in the next phase of life.
Right, right. And that all whizzes by. So this
That's what
has
people say. It has not whizzed by for me. I don't believe in that. People say, "Oh, it goes so fast." Like, no, it doesn't. It's been like 15 years. I felt every
no.
day of those 15 years.
It doesn't until they're gone.
Okay,
That's when
well,
I
that doesn't
felt
count. Like, that's not
yeah.
how time works, people. That's not how time works. If it doesn't feel like it's going fast in the moment, it didn't go fast. Then
Well,
it's just
now
over. Like, but
she said
it's not. It
this.
didn't go fast. It just ended after that time.
Ah, well, it's funny because I was like you. I used to say that too. Like, this isn't moving
That's
fast.
not. I remember. I'm like, we're still in elementary school. Like, when are we gonna? This is a really long time. We're nowhere.
But I'm now one of those people because my youngest, my baby, is graduating this year. And I'm like,
Yeah,
how did that happen?
it happened
I just said I'm
over
pregnant.
18 years. It
Yeah.
happened. Yeah. I mean, I think about my life, and I'm sorry I'm like going over time, but the thing
It's
I
okay.
view time very specifically because I try to cram so much into time that I'm
Mm,
always aware of how much time is passing. Because I like if I have an hour, what I'm going to do
mm.
with this, you know what I mean? Like so I think that it should be more time, not less. It doesn't feel like it went fast. It feels like I've lived double the amount of time because I've crammed a lot into that
Mm.
time.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think this is going to be a really amazing season for you because you're being open to and yielding to what's to come, and to be able to say, "I've lived an amazing life and I've gotten all my dreams come true." I mean, that's rare and special. And just imagine you're still breathing and you
Yeah.
still have a
There's
lot of
some nightmares
vitality.
too, but
Yeah.
for the things I plan. But
Yeah.
hmm
Yeah. So my last question, and this is it's gonna feel random, but it was part of the questions I did send you. But what is your theme song? What's a song that you
ooh.
just love and
I
live
would
by?
say right now I'd have to go with "Cozy" by Beyoncé. When I'm a big
Yeah.
I'm in the Beehive for sure. Went to the Renaissance tour. I didn't know the outfits, so I didn't know I was supposed to wear silver. So I wasn't really ready. It was early in the tour. People weren't like doing all that yet. But I would stay cozy because I'm very comfortable in my skin, cozy
Yeah.
with who I am. I love myself. You know the
Yeah.
rest. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. I love it. Yeah. Cozy is when I've asked this question, Beyonce comes up pretty much
Really
once every three. I mean, it's different Beyonce
interesting.
songs.
Okay.
Cozy, I think, has come up. We have a playlist. So
Okay.
anytime a guest says a song, we include it on the playlist. But I think,
Nice.
but Beyonce, yeah, this album, she did some
Yeah,
specialness
really. I loved
because
it.
it's a lot of theme songs. Yeah. So, well, this has been awesome. If you guys want to hear more from Depelsha, like I said, I have a couple more things, some things that maybe she wanted to say, but we didn't get a chance to say, and some advice. So tune in on Patreon if you become a subscriber to patreon.com.
Thank
So
you,
slash
Jan.
finding your voice. Yes, you're welcome. You're welcome. And you stay right there. Everybody else, we will be back again next week. Thank you.
Bye
All
bye.
righty. All right. We're in our next
I don't
segment.
know if the
We'll
sun is
be in
coming
it.
in and out like this light keeps the whole time the light
I
was
don't know.
coming
You know
in.
what? I think light. So light to me is, especially if we're not controlling the light, it's energy. I always think of
Yeah,
ancestors and those who are in other realms and how they,
right. Because the
so David
actual
might
light has
be
been
here.
the same the whole time, but it comes in and out like I'm not moving. So I don't know.
I say Dave might
Kind
be
of
in
weird.
here a little bit.
Maybe
I don't,
somebody,
yes.
right?
Yes, maybe in here.
Right.
So advice. Any and I didn't talk as much about just kind of going through grief and how you move through grief. But I think it's an important aspect of
Hmm.
because I think all of us face grief in some way,
Yeah.
and so for you, that person who maybe is has gone through some heavy grief or who has had a loss, um, what advice to begin to move through that, or something that you've learned that's helped you to move through that?
Ooh, that's probably the toughest question you've asked. Because I
Mm,
don't have a good answer. Like someone recently asked me to write an article about like advice or strategies for coping with grief, and I gave a very like snippy response. Like I don't have any advice for that, because I think everyone has to find their own way, and different things work for different people. So, and I don't know if I'm moving through it appropriately. Like I did end up finding a therapist early on. I tried to find a therapist, and it was very difficult to find people who
mm,
I connected with who I thought were helpful in any way. Like I went through three different people and decided it was a
mm,
waste of time.
mm.
And then spoke with someone who said it was too soon for me to be doing therapy. So that was very confusing.
Yeah.
But then I had met with someone actually through an EAP program at work during the
Mhm,
pandemic. Like they gave us free counseling at work because of the pandemic and like a staff
mhm,
person had died.
mhm,
And I connected with that person. So I went back and
mm.
found him. I think one thing, this is why I say everyone's different. Like I was very intent on finding like a Black woman therapist, like someone who could
Mhm,
relate to me. Then I found a Black woman widower therapist, and I
mhm.
found that for me it was too close. Like, and I needed
Yeah.
someone different. So the therapist I ended up connecting with is a white gay male therapist. He's my same age. He's from the South, so we have things in common. But
Yeah.
I felt that I needed a freer space
Yeah.
because I'm always worried. Like this, the Black professional world is so small. Like this person knows somebody I know. Like super
Yeah.
nosy. Like I don't trust
Yeah.
the system. So, but that could be different from someone else. Someone else might feel more comfortable otherwise. So you really have to
Right.
find your own way on whether you want therapy, don't want therapy. Also for me, like it was helpful to just stay busy. Like I became more
Mm,
busy after
mhm,
the death than I was before. I that all the boards said you mentioned that
mm.
I'm on, like they all came after Dave's death, you know? So
Yeah.
I've become more
Yeah.
busy, but for me, I found that to be more helpful than sitting around being sad. Like I tried to like, I
Right.
only took a week off from work, but it was virtual work. So it was different. So I was able to go off video at
Right.
any time. It was, I think if it had been in person, it would have been much more intense, but,
Yeah.
and more
Yeah.
challenging. But because it was virtual, I was able to just take a week and return. But
Yeah.
when I tried to intentionally take time off to grieve and just
Mhm.
sit and be silent and grieve, I found that very depressing and
Yeah.
hopefully not
Yeah.
very helpful. So I was like, I don't think this is helpful. But for somebody
Yeah.
else, that might be helpful. Like some people might need like a whole month to just do nothing
Mhm.
but grieve. But for me, I needed to stay busy and keep moving. So I
Right.
don't think there is any one size fits all answer. that
Yeah,
works for people. I think ultimately you navigate life based on who you are, and I've been navigating this based on who I am, but for a
absolutely.
different type of person, a different personality, different values, different circumstances, you might need something completely different.
Absolutely. No, thank you for saying that, because I tell people this all the time with because grieving is a part of self-care. So what I need for me is not going to necessarily look like what you need for you. And that's
Hmm.
because, to your point, we have different stories, we have different ideas, we have different belief systems, or even if they're similar, the way I'm
Yeah.
wired versus how you're wired or whatever, it varies. And so I appreciate that you're, being honest and frank about that, so that it's not, well,
Yeah.
first step, do this. And the other part with the therapist part, it's funny, when I started, my journey of therapy, and I've done therapy for years, and because I have a master's in counseling, I'm just big on, get support
Hmm.
when you need it. But my first therapist that I had some other Black female therapists initially when I started. And to your point, there was something that wasn't connecting completely.
Hmm.
But I was still on the quest. And I was in a really dark space. And this was in my 30s, my mid-30s, and really probably the darkest space I had ever been in. And I felt so desperate. I started just Googling. I was like, I put Black therapists, then I said people that work with Black people. Like, I just was like,
Okay.
I just couldn't. I was like, I need
Yeah.
something. And it was a white woman who like the connect finally made. And
Hmm.
she was the closest to me, so I knew I could get there. I wasn't going to have to commute all crazy. And I was frank with her, and I said, have you worked with Black people? Because I just, and she's like, 80% of my clientele is Black, actually, because of
Okay.
where I'm
Interesting.
located.
Okay.
And so, yeah, she got it, and she wasn't, trying to be, knowing the whole Black culture, whatever. But because she had been in spaces helping many Black people,
Right.
she had a different presence about how she was with me. So yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, it just depends. So people have to find what works for them. I also did not find it very helpful. I tried like the widow groups, connect with the widow groups, and I
Mhm.
found that very depressing because people were in there saying they
Mm.
wanted to go die and be with their husbands. Like no, we're not doing that. Like
Yeah.
no, I don't relate to any of this at all. So, and this is making me sadder than I was before I came here. So, but for some
Yeah.
people, that's very comforting to be in a group of people, even like talking about it all the time. Like when people called me during that time, of course, I want people to check on me and say how you're doing, but I really wanted to hear like what's going on
Right.
in your life. Like I don't want to talk about that all the time. Like, what are
Right.
you doing?
Right.
Hmm.
Thank you. Yeah, because there's a lot of assumptions, a lot of
Yeah.
assumptions made.
Oh, last thing I'll say, for if you have friends who are grieving, reach out to them. Don't assume that they don't want to hear from you or they need space, because I lost some friends along the way for that reason. Like
Mm,
people either didn't feel comfortable reaching out or didn't reach out. And it's better to reach out, even if you just send a text to say thinking about you, praying for you. It doesn't have to be something elaborate, but like stay in
right,
touch, because
right.
I will always remember who showed up, and hundreds of people showed up. It was
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's thank you. These are really, really good lessons. And one of the things you do, and I should have mentioned this in the main part, you write amazing Facebook posts. And when you were, when David first passed away and transitioned, your posts were so powerful and so honest. And so I think so much of what people were like, wow, okay. Like, you're like, don't tell me this. Don't
Oh
say
yeah.
this. So,
Yeah.
which was really, though, I mean, but it allowed for me at least, one, to know where you're at. Like, so
Yeah.
you're not
I hate
performing.
their spirit is with you.
Yeah.
Their spirit is not helping me at all. The spirit is not in the car with me. It's not taking in the groceries. It's not going on vacation. Like that's not helpful. Don't
Yeah.
say, "Oh, but their
Yeah.
spirit is with you." Well, that's not helping me and my kids right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And to your point, you're teaching people how to come to you. And I think this is what's important, is wherever we are in our lives, we have to teach, people do what they feel most comfortable doing, or what they were
Hmm.
told, or what they watched, or so if we don't speak our truth, again, to your point, some people may want to hear that. That's
Right.
like,
It
okay,
must it
that's
must work
comforting.
for somebody because people say it all the time. So it has to be soothing for someone. I hope.
Yeah. So no, that's good. Yeah. Well, my last question is what is something that you wish I would have asked that I did not ask? Or what's just something you want to say that you haven't had an opportunity to share?
Oh, I would say, like, if you're trying to figure out what you want to do in life or the life you want, just try something. I
Mhm.
think about, I have a friend who, for the last 25 to 30 years, she said to me, I don't really know what I want to do with my life. I don't know. And here we are, 25 to 30 years later, and she hasn't done anything different. And her
Wow.
life looks very similar to it did, all those decades ago. So I would just say, don't wait, and don't be afraid to try something. If you don't know, ask around, see what other people do and what sounds interesting. Just take a chance, try something new, whether it's a new career, new relationship, move into a different city, maybe even different country, until you find your joy in your place. But
Mm,
don't let life just pass you by. Like, I may be an extreme. I'm a leave it all on the mat type person. I want to get as much out of life as I possibly can and use my time. Like, time I see as my most precious resource and most scarce
right.
resource. So I want to use time
Mm,
very wisely. So don't
mm,
let time just pass you by. Think very intentionally about what you want out of life, what you value, who you are. The answer is not and should not be the same for everyone. It's what is
mm.
your North Star, what matters to you, and then make all decisions through that filter. Like, once you
Absolutely.
determine who you are and what matters, like, say no to everything that doesn't align with that and say yes to things that do, or that will get you a step closer to that.
Yes. Ding dong, yes. And the big part that I'm just going to underscore, you have to spend time to know who you are so that you can do those things. Because if
Yes,
you
very much
don't know
so.
who you are, or you're just kind of a shell of yourself,
You're just tossing in the wind with wherever life takes you.
exactly, exactly.
Hmm.
Well, thank you, beautiful. This has been
Thank
wonderful,
you.
and I love you said some things that I think can really kind of reframe things where other people are like, I mean, even just what you just said, as far as don't tell me the spirits with me, they're not helping me get my groceries. And I know, and I'm thinking, I'm like, ooh, I say that to people, so I mean, so
People,
these,
clearly some people must like it, right? Like, don't say it to me. I'm not one of these people who's looking for like birds on the windowsill and, like you said, the lights coming on and off. Like, the lights just don't work. I'm not like one of those people who's looking for meaning in every little intangible thing. Like, certainly for my husband and now my father, what I feel much more than their presence is their absence. So
mm,
saying trite things like that, like, doesn't make
yeah,
that any different. I feel their absence
yeah.
much more than their presence.
Yeah, yeah. No, I appreciate that. And
Mhm.
it's and to your point, it's where your journey is, it's what your experience is and getting in touch with where you're at. And that may change, you never know, right? I mean,
Mhm.
I've had many things that I would have never ever thought. And then some things have happened in life and it's like, "Oh, I completely think that." So it's
Mhm.
but it's knowing self, knowing
Yeah.
self. So, awesome,
That
awesome.
is the answer. So great to connect with you, and I hope we can catch up more personally soon.
Yes, yes. You're all you're on the go. I'm like, I was actually in New York, but I was only there for like 24 hours, and so
Oh, okay.
I
Okay.
just went to the Blue Note to see Robert
Okay.
Glasper. But
Well, we will figure it out.
yes. So I'm gonna push stop on the recording. So, but you stay tight.
Okay.
Everybody else watching the video, we'll be back again next week. And you guys take care.
Bye.
Thank you.